burned your mouth? On. Oh.
to walk right up here. Go ahead and start it up. I want to see if it works to hold it up here.
And can we? How do you look at a? I hope it works good in here. Sometimes I don't get very good reception. She's already been to other places today. She's been everywhere today. Let's see.
Control volume. Okay. Now, you'll have it ready. I'm gonna give you you'll just sit right here and so Lou will come up here.
Thanks, Kelly.
Now, then I'm going to be doing I'd like for y'all to come up here when I get the chair. And then I'll make these presentations to this is Patrick Chairman here.
Yeah, it's more. We try to get one of our participants to shoot.
Okay?
Okay.
Be ready.
I can't.
chairman over here. But I will hand you the microphone.
Okay, can I bring the rest of the chair?
Yeah, I want all that. I'm going to ask you. This proclamation is about you and relationships. Y'all can sit right here.
That's an OU chair. I called Lori and I said, hey, please wear black, someone wear gray and black. Just kidding.
It's your photogenic
Yes, you are.
Y'all met the Garrison? Fort Sill has a new Garrison. Rectangle.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, came through the mail, probably a month ago.
And so when you're through with our talking, we usually through the flag. Expected to stay with us.
I have another, I actually have,
I've got other meetings.
and I'm going. I'm in a 2-day, well, 4-day training.
Okay, so grab your flag.
Okay. I had to take a break from our training that we're going on. At,
Okay, it's time to get started. I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawton City Council to order. Please stand for the invocation by Officer Louis Poha Pacheco and remain standing for the Lord's Prayer by Comanche Princess Kylie Davidson and then we'll remain standing and have the Pledge of Allegiance. Officer Louis?
I'll be praying in my Comanche language. Let's bow our heads. Hatsame kona nama yuyumu ko nanami yok tomaba. A wino tada siku wino. Ta apa puni yakuri nama na yuko taietsi wunik. Marave ye ku wunikara anan sutai katsame tata tini patsun. Narami Jesus nami sutai. I kasokovi kanari nasaka opiku wino. Nanarama no wino nasa sumani nasaka kitu yuyu epitoi. Kovoni narami Jesus uri sutai na. Nanarama wino so na ka wino da ni kama katiku taiti kovoni narami Jesus tainan satai katata tuni patsun. Durix winix navinai kimara kene wini wayuna uri sutai na itsakumi wa sokava yuyumukumia taiva teko pasove taisua ke ha wana narami Jesus. Father, we thank you for another day here upon Mother Earth. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for our sins. Father, we thank you for the clouds that bring the rain and the rain that fills our rivers, our lakes, and our ponds so that we all may have life. Father, I ask that you be with each and every leader here today, that you would help them with the decisions that are made here today, dear Father. Father, we ask that you be with our soldiers that are overseas, that are protecting our countries, dear Father. Father, be with their families as they're away from them. Father, I ask that you be with our brothers in blue and our sisters in blue, Father, and also our firefighters. Be with all of our first responders, dear Father, that you just bless them in every way. Father, forgive us for what we do here upon Mother Earth. We ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Which art in
Okay, let's go ahead and applaud him. And, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Conway. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and thank you, Officer Louis, as well. Please call the roll.
Hankins, Harris, Chapman, Burke, Hampton, Fortenbaugh, Johnson, Warren.
And now it's time for some proclamations. For the first proclamation we'll do, let's go ahead and do, since we've already had some great Native American culture in our prayer, let's go ahead and do the Native American Heritage Month. And so I'm going to invite the chairpersons that are here to come to the front, and I'll come down as well. And if you're Native American, please feel free to come on to the front, because this is about Native American Heritage Month. All right. Yeah, come on down. Some can come down here, just spread out everywhere and get your posters out. That's awesome. All right, well, this is a special time. This is Native American Heritage Month. And you know, our state is all about Native Americans, and it's kind of where we started. And, you know, I learned some things this week from our city attorney, that things are different in Oklahoma than they are in other places in the nation. And we know that from reading the paper. But in particular, it was interesting to learn a little bit about the way the laws are different in Oklahoma. And the reason is our Native American heritage brings so much to us. And so today's about friendships, and it's about building relationships. And that's the theme that we're using as we make these presentations of gifts to our local tribes, the Kiowa, Comanche, the Apache, and the Fort Sill Apache. And each one of these presentations, and we'll do that in just a minute. Let me read the proclamation. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by Native Americans, indigenous peoples. The contributions of Native Americans have been enhanced freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today. Their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States. And whereas Native Americans are inextricably linked with the history of the United States, beginning with the Pilgrims' arrival and the Plymouth colony and continuing until the present day, Native American contributions are woven deeply into our nation's rich tapestry. During National Native American Heritage Month, we honor and celebrate the first Americans and recognize their contributions and sacrifices. And whereas Native Americans have influenced every stage of America's development, they helped early European settlers survive and thrive in a new land. They contributed democratic ideas to our constitutional framers. And for more than 200 years, they've bravely answered the call to defend our nation, serving with distinction in every branch of the United States Armed Forces. The nation is grateful for the service and sacrifice of all Native Americans. And whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976, and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month. And whereas the 2020 Census Bureau data estimates that the Native American population grew to 7.1 million people identifying as Native American. And whereas Native Americans are a testament to the deep importance of culture and vibrancy of traditions passed down throughout generations, Native American men and women contribute to all areas of life in Lawton, Oklahoma, including, but not limited to, government, business, arts and sciences, medicine, education, law enforcement, and of course, the military. Therefore, I do hereby recognize November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month and encourage everyone to participate in appreciating and developing deeper relationships with our Native American brothers and sisters. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, now you guys keep your pose, but if I could get the chairpersons, if the Comanche chairman would come and stand by this one, and this one is, this is the Apache tribe, Mr. Chairman, and Madam Chairwoman over here, right there. Now, do we have anybody here from the Kiowa tribe? Okay. We had a little trouble communicating with the Kiowa tribe. What we have here is a print. The original hangs in my office. And Robert Peterson, I was hoping was going to be able to be here today, but he wasn't. And Robert Peterson, our local artist that is selling art all over the world, is the artist of this. And this is a print of what hangs in my office. And what this is an expression of friendship to our Native American friends. And this one says, to the Comanche Nation, Lords of the Plains, and its heights. By the way, you got to go like this. Heights. Everybody do that. Heights. There you go. And that means friends. And then it says, Native American Heritage Month 2022, friendship rising to the highest level of some kind of wonderful. Let's give the Comanche appreciation.
Thank you, Mayor. This is some kind of wonderful. At the Comanche Nation, our vision is Comanche strong, stronger together. But today, Mayor, it is Comanche strong, City of Lawton, Fort Sill strong, stronger together.
All right, my friend. Thank you. God bless you. Let's give him a round of applause. Mr. Chairman Cooper. Okay, this one says the Apache tribe of Oklahoma, and did you just say Chaw?
Che.
Che?
Che.
Che. Say that.
Jay.
Okay, and that's friends. And it also says Native American Heritage Month, friendship rising to the highest level of some kind of wonderful. And let's give Chairman Cooper a big hand, too.
Before I speak, I want to introduce two other tribal leaders that I brought with me today. Vice Chairman Matt Seeley. And then my Secretary-Treasurer, Ruth Burt. And then the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma, we just want to thank the City of Lawton, Mayor Stan Booker, and the rest of the council members on y'all's continued efforts on rebuilding the relationships with the four tribes in the local areas, and also a new friend, Garrison Commander, Fort Zilla. So, thank you guys.
And Chairwoman. And this one for Chairwoman Ware of the Fort Sill, Chiricahua, Warm Springs Apache Tribe. And can you tell me how you...
Chayune. Chayune.
I'm going to learn that.
Okay.
Okay? And again, Native American Heritage Month 2022, friendship rising to the highest levels of some kind of wonderful. Let's appreciate the Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mayor, the City Council. Appreciate your hospitality on presenting this beautiful plaque to the tribe, and we look forward to future relationship, friendship with the City of Lawton and Fort Sill.
All right, wonderful. Let's give her another round. Did you get a picture? Okay. All right, thank you all so much, and please be sure to pick up your plaque, and we'll get the Kiowa to theirs at a later time. Thank you so much. Another round of applause, please. Thank you, guys. So tell me about the students. Where y'all? How did you get enlisted? Old people like me always love it when young people get involved. We're gonna have to work on our glasses. God bless you, sir. Okay, now, important to Lawton Fort Sill as always, veterans. We are the city of veterans. I read online where we're number 5 in the nation on number of veterans in one county. Isn't that great? And so if I could get veterans to come down here, we're going to do a proclamation about Veterans Day. Do we have any veterans in the house? I know we got to have more veterans. Come on down. If you're a veteran, come down. We have bashful veterans. John, Mr. Hampton, Mr. Fortenbaugh. Are y'all veterans? Yeah. You're not a veteran unless you're out? Is that it? Is that it, really? Okay. All right. Get up here. All right. Somehow I think a few are holding out on us. Veterans Day is so important and means so much to us, doesn't it? And in Lawton Fort Sill, I think we think a little more about veterans. And I'm going to tell you, last year, I went out to the Veterans Center on Flower Mound, and there were some MacArthur High School students. And they had the drum corps there, they had the ROTC, and they had the Key Club. And they were marching around appreciating the veterans. I want to tell you what I thought of as mayor was that you're doing something right when your young people appreciate veterans. Whereas America's veterans have fought to defend our country, its values, and its interests since the first days of our founding. They've defended tyrants, eliminated terrorists, and secured freedom at home and abroad. Their courage and fortitude in the face of adversity serve as an example for all Americans. On Veterans Day, we pause to pay tribute to all who have proudly worn our nation's uniform. These soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen selflessly place lives, well-being, and security of others before their own. We enjoy the privileges of peace, prosperity, and freedom because of our veterans. And we are forever indebted to them beyond measure. Whereas for their love of country and dedication to duty, Americans' veterans have endured adversity, loneliness, fatigue, loss, and made other incredible sacrifices. Many sustained life-altering physical injuries and disabilities. Others bear the burden of emotional scars for the remainder of their lives. Our nation's veterans fully understand liberty's high and precious costs, for they have paid it every day since the formation of our republic. Whereas our veterans represent the best of America, and they deserve the best America can provide them. To recognize and respect the contributions our servicemen and women have made in defense of America and to advance the cause of peace, the Congress has provided, as outlined in 5 U.S.C. 6103A, that November 11th of each year shall be set aside as a legal public holiday to recognize America's veterans. These heroes served faithfully, humbly, and valiantly in times of war and peace, and they carried these admirable traits into the civilian workforce when their military service was fulfilled. Our precious liberty has survived and thrived because of generations of brave Americans from every background and walk of life who have answered the call to support and defend the United States of America. The gravity of these contributions is immeasurable, and so is our debt to every single one of our nation's veterans. I do hereby proclaim November 11th as Veterans Day locally and urge everyone here to help me appreciate these veterans and all veterans for their service to our country. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you stay right over there and get us on the wall? Got it? Okay. All right, George. Thank you. Let's give him another round of applause. Now we have Pi Epsilon Chapter Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. You guys are doing double duty today. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Great, great. Good to have you. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. All right, I see these guys all around town, and we're going to hear a little bit in this proclamation about what they do. Whereas Omega Psi Phi is the first international fraternal organization to be founded on the campus of a historically black college, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded at Howard University in Washington, District of Columbia, on November 17, 1911 by undergraduates Oscar James Cooper, MD, Frank Coleman, PhD, and Edgar Amos Love, DD, and their faculty advisor, Ernest Everett Just, PhD. The Pi Epsilon chapter was chartered at the Patterson Center in Lawton, Oklahoma on July 5, 1952. And whereas the Psi Epsilon chapter Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated has maintained a commitment to the betterment of mankind, the enhancement of the community, and the enrichment of collegiate men through dedication to its cardinal principles of manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift. And whereas the Psi Epsilon chapter has carried out the goals of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity in the Lawton Fort Sill community by participating in events to uplift the community, including voter registration, scholarship programs, and youth mentorship programs. And whereas during the fraternity's Achievement Week celebration, the Psi Epsilon chapter will celebrate more than 70 years of service to the Lawton Fort Sill community in many diverse fields of endeavor. Whereas the Psi Epsilon chapter Omega Psi Phi fraternity will commemorate its contributions and promote its continued success during its Achievement Week activities during the week of November 13th through November 19th, 2022 in Lawton, Oklahoma. I do hereby proclaim Psi Epsilon Chapter Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Week, the week of November 17th, be November 13th through the 19th. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, now you guys do a lot in the community, but what I want you to know, what I notice the most is the positive impact that you have on young men. And I want you to know I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
All right. Hey, thank you, Mayor, City Council. To those who don't know me, my name is John Hill. I am the current boss list for Psi Epsilon chapter here in Lawton. As the mayor stated, and it was stated in his proclamation, next week is International Achievement Week for the organization that is spread worldwide. And I'll be remiss if we didn't highlight the last living charter member for Psi Epsilon, which was the late Arthur Johnson Sr., for those that know. Albert Johnson Sr. He founded, was the charter member of the chapter that we now hold sacred, and he's moved on to glory. But we promise we'll continue to do what our duties in this community to try to continue to uplift and bring us all together for the better good of this community. Thank you guys, and have a blessed day.
Thank you, sir. God bless you guys. Thank you for what you do. Okay, and that moves us on to reports from the mayor and the city council. We'll start with Ward 1.
I just want to say I appreciate the opening by the tribes. That was beautiful and really touching. Appreciate that.
All right, very good. Thank you. Mr. Harris.
Saturday I had the privilege of going to the Big Read kickoff at the museum. Jason's not here today, I don't think, but he's done a wonderful job, and they have over 20 events this month, and a book. They gave away free books. That was awesome. And then I want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, to get out and vote. It's an important day in America, and we need to all go exercise our right to vote.
Thank you. Ms. Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say real quickly to the constituents of Ward 5, I am very aware of some of the safety issues with fires and different things happening in our ward, and am diligently working on trying to make sure that those situations get taken care of. I'm in contact with the city manager, and just be aware that you are heard with all the safety issues in the ward. Thank you, Mayor.
And Mr. Fortenbaugh, no. And Mr. Warren.
Just one thing to report. On my way to vote at lunch, I went up 53rd Street, and those guys are working like there's no tomorrow. There was dirt flying and concrete laying, and that sidewalk is finished on the east side to the creek, and then on the west side, they're about halfway to Euclid, and they are moving. People are using it. I see people using the one along Gore every day, every time I drive by. Good things are happening.
All right, thank you. And Colonel P.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just really wanted to say thanks for having yourself and Michael Cleghorn attend our strategic planning session last week, and the input that you all provided to us. We're really moving forward here, getting the mission, vision, objectives, and some of our priorities going, and ensuring that those are all aligned, not just on the military side with the Fire Center of Excellence and our partners, but also here amongst the community with the City of Lawton and the numerous other agencies that came out. So thank you so much.
Thank you for including us. We love Fort Sill. Now it's time for audience participation. Anyone having an item of business to present to the City Council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. Hey, Albert, what's your name?
My name is Albert. I'll read the address that I'll have to reach in a couple of months. Will be 25 North. Testing.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
Okay, we got it. Albert Rivas. I have the address 25 Northwest 53rd Street for a little bit longer, and that sidewalk does look great. Really, I'm just coming up here to kind of start a discussion because tomorrow I'll be attending the LEDA meeting on Shepler Park, and I know I'll have to come back once we can get it on the agenda about Barbara Curry's benches and monument that will be going back up on in Shepler. But there's a few of us, Jennifer Ellis, Cynthia Sosa, Kim Thomas, a bunch of us that are wanting to offer our recommendations as to where in Shepler Park we'd like to see this at. And I had spoken with several other people within the community and within city government on that process of naming that area that the memorial and the suffragette statue is going to go, dedicating that specific area to Barbara Curry. And so if it's a circular area or a triangular area of that park, naming it the Barbara Curry Triangle, the Barbara Curry Circle, and that way it's almost like those memorials out in Elmer Thomas where it's kind of chained off and it says, because nor the benches or the statue will say Barbara Curry, but since she worked so hard to get that done, we'd like that area to be dedicated specifically to her within Shepler Park. So I'll be at LEDA's meeting tomorrow just to kind of present that so we can get on the agenda, and then all of you beautiful people can vote. And I still have a couple more meetings that I can come to, so I'll be here next week whenever LEDA's meeting is done. Cool. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you for coming, Howard. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward during audience participation for an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be acted with one motion. Should discussion be desired on an item, that item will be removed from consent agenda prior to action and considered separately. Council, do you have anything you want us to call? And if you'll bear with me just a minute, I got to get my agenda open. Okay, I do have 17. 17 and 18. What did I hear? Number 3. 3, 17, and 18. Any others, council?
Mayor, council, I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of pulling items 3, 17, and 18.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion carries 7-0. Bringing us to item 3. Consider and approve an amendment to the insufficient fire flow waiver to restrict its application to residential use only. John.
Mayor, council, if you'll recall, the insufficient fire flow waiver that was approved a couple council meetings ago allows for some development, particularly west of the city of Lawton, where the infrastructure isn't in place to achieve sufficient fire flow. So council considered this waiver, approved it, and then this is just kind of an administrative cleanup mechanism at the request of the Charlotte and other city planners to just go in and make this waiver only applicable to residential properties only. So this would prevent schools, large buildings, non-residential properties from being able to use this waiver for their benefit. So that's it.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, I just had a couple questions about if there aren't some smaller commercial businesses similar to mine with a warehouse that doesn't have a fire issue necessarily, that maybe we're jumping the gun on this and making it too restrictive. Can we bring this back later and have some more information on it?
Yeah, I definitely think we can.
Okay.
So are you wanting to table this or what?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, we need to make a motion to table.
I would make a motion that we table this for further examination on which properties will be affected besides the residential.
Okay, so we're motion to table, subject to completion of further examination, not to a date certain. Is there a second? Motion to table. Is there a second? Are there any other motions?
I'd make a motion to approve. I believe we could probably always bring it back in the future if we see a situation where a small commercial building might, work, then we can bring that back. I think we're better off to do it that way than to table it and have two businesses come in the meantime that we'd be sorry that we allowed in without
Right.
fire protection.
Okay, so I have a motion for approval. Is there a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Discussion or debate?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So could we do that where we do it use upon review with the planning somehow?
Charlotte?
I hate to throw more work on Charlotte. I know how hard she works.
So my recommendation is that if we've got a commercial project that would work or would qualify this, we would just bring it back on a case-by-case basis specifically for that project as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 6-1, bringing us to item 17. Consider approving an agreement between the City of Lawton and EST for the professional engineering services and the preparation of contract documents for Goodyear Boulevard reconstruction from Lee Boulevard to Cash Road, project number EN 2002B. Joe Painter.
Mayor and Council, so this is the actual Phase 3 of what we call the Lee Boulevard project. As you'll remember, part of that project was also Goodyear from Lee to Cash. So this will, we're going to reconstruct the road from Lee to Cash, but we're also going to work on the drainage on the, the eastbound on-ramp where it floods over there. And that's part of the project also.
So when do you expect these plans to be ready to bid?
We don't have a schedule just yet. Once we approve the contract, we'll have a kickoff meeting and set the schedule of when we'll have all the preliminary plans and construction plans. And
What is your best engineering guess?
It's probably 12 months of design.
12 months?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that puts us back in the winter. Are we going to have to wait till spring to do blacktop?
We could. We haven't got that far to think about that. A lot of it's going to be concrete, though, so we'll just have to see which is concrete and which is asphalt. But a big part of it will be put back with concrete.
Okay, and since Lee Boulevard and Goodyear were one project, I'm going to ask about the next phase of the project, which is, I think, 38th to 67th on Lee. When is that engineering project going to be brought to us?
We're working on our capital improvement budget right now on when we'll bring all those projects to you. We don't have a schedule just yet for hiring the consultant for that. It's starting to look like that that project may have to be broken into a little smaller project for budgeting purposes, so we'll have to, we're getting close.
So I don't get that. At the rate of inflation being so high and interest rate being lower than inflation, we need to get the work done. We don't need to wait. It's costing us to go crazy over budget on this pedestrian bridge, the delay. Now, I'm pretty sure, I am talking about the same project, so this is okay. I don't want you to shut me down. But I'm pretty sure that I speak for the council when we want a sense of urgency in this engineering. We can delay construction if something comes up, but I think bringing that engineering to council is probably what the council wants. So if we can get that accelerated, it would be much appreciated. I don't know, council weigh in.
Mayor, my only thought is, Joe is, and city manager is, you know how we feel about every time we look up, the feds are raising the interest rates. So do we go out and get some sort of funding that we can complete this project if that's the issue? But things are not going down, they're going up. And so, and you're right, look at what we talked about the East Gore Bridge, you know, the pedestrian bridge. It started out at 20 years ago, it's something of nothing, and now it's really something. But it takes us too long, but it's always been our problem. And when we do CIP projects, when we do things like that, we've included money in that in those items to fund these if we have to go out and get funding outside of waiting until the money's in the bank. And that's what the citizens expect. They don't, when they pass a CIP, they don't expect it to take 15 years to get a project completed. And that's where we as a council take a beating, is because they say, well, what about that splash pad you promised me? What about this that you promised me? What about that road you promised me? Oh, well, it's going to be another 5 more years. Do you make any sense at all?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fortenbaugh.
Just wanted to make a comment in general. That road that we're talking about, Goodyear Boulevard, is broken down. Thousands of semis roll down it every day. And also, subsequent to that, now the next thing coming is the bypass going to Highway 62. So that's all going to be really good. We'll fix this road, build that new road. Right now, Old Cache Road is broken down from 82nd Street to Goodyear Boulevard. And also there's a sign right on that corner that says all trucks go down Old Cache Road to get to the industrial area. The only thing I would ask is the city manager and the traffic committee, look at that sign that's there and consider whether, we don't want to ban trucks, but maybe direct them down to Lee Boulevard since it's brand new and 100% right now.
Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mayor. I do also feel like with the constituents, I think it's important that we do get things done as quickly as possible. And I can't see that we can't at least bring up some options than just have this one timeline on the table. I too think that if we have to try to figure out how we can get some more money earlier, get it done, and then pay it out or whatever we have to do. But I want to weigh in and just say I feel a sense of urgency to kind of get this done myself.
Mr.
Thank
Warren.
you, Mayor.
And I'm going to echo, I think, most of what everybody said, but I think we need to free up as much money, whether we have to borrow it or whatever we have to do the engineering, because with the price of everything going up, I'm not concerned about the price of the engineering. I'm concerned about when that engineering's done and we have the ability to borrow funds or whatever to do the actual construction, we want to be ready with those plans on a shelf someplace so we can just yank them off and build. Now, how is that going to save us some time? Yeah, it's going to save us a little time in the long run, but more than anything, it's going to save us some money, I think, in the long run, because if we bid it in, say, 2025, it's going to be much different in 2026 than it would be in 2025. So we want to get that bid as early as we can. So if we've got those plans on a shelf, we can do that as soon as we find a way to borrow the money or we have money in hand.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Painter, does this in any way being held up by the completion of our road surveys with the company that came in and did that drove all the roads and did their surveys of which is the worst road? Are we waiting on that information, or is there something else that's holding us up?
No, sir, we haven't finalized our plan. Everything you've talked about right now is what we're going to be working on Thursday to finalize that plan. Do we borrow the money? When do we schedule all these? I'm in full agreement that there's a certain amount of Can you hear me?
So we are in full agreement with what everybody just said. Thursday, we'll be working on that schedule and when we do everything. Having plans on the shelf will also help us. If there's any funding that pops up or we're way ahead of the scale, if we have the plans ready to go and the plans in hand. I would caution you a little bit. There is a shelf life on plans. You get too many on the shelf and then you'll be redoing them at some point. But we're not there. We have a lot of work and we can get a lot of design started and done. So we're in full agreement with what everybody's just stated and we're working that direction.
Thank you, Joe, and I want you to know I appreciate you. You've brought a lot of acceleration to this process, and I think it's clear that the council appreciates that acceleration, and we just want to get things done. And there was a little confusion over this Goodyear deal that's cost us some months. My anticipation from the beginning was that Goodyear would be ready as soon as the first 2 miles of Lee was done, and because of misunderstanding, that's not happening. So what I'm trying to do is clear it out, make sure that city manager understands the council wants it moving fast, and everybody down the line understands that so that we get these road projects done. And the council will worry about the money. We'll figure it out if we can just get those plans done. Thank you for all you do. Do I have a motion for approval?
Second.
Motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Moving us to item 18, consider approving final amendment and change order number 3 and accepting Lee Boulevard Phase 1 pavement resurfacing from 67th to 97th Street, project number EN 2002A, as constructed by TNG Construction and placing the maintenance bond into effect. The reason I pulled this is I'm just curious what the change order exactly was, and was it a cost or savings?
Mayor and Council, this is our normal reconciliation of the final as-built quantities we do on every single project. We always overrun or underrun a little bit. This one actually we ended up under a couple $1,000 or a couple $100,000. So we were on schedule and under budget.
That's good, and it was bid under estimates to begin with, so that's a great job. Do we have a motion for approval? Motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate? Mr. Harris.
I just want to make a comment, Joe, and I'm not picking on you, but the construction company had called me several times, and I've had conversations with the manager about this, about the time it takes to get paid. And wondering if there's a way we can look at that process and figure out how to speed it up in the future. And I suggested to them that we would all sit down together before the next project that they bid on and see if we can figure out what the issues were and fix those. That's all I don't need a response.
Okay, Mr. Warren.
I just wanted to comment, I talked highly of the out-of-town company that's building sidewalks. And I just want to say that this project was done by a entity here in town, and they did an awesome job. If you haven't driven that stretch of road, get out there and drive it. Job well done.
And I just have one thing. He's correct in the fact that I had the same complaints. And these companies that have to go out and borrow money to wait for us to make a payment, guess who's going to pay for that in the next job? We are, because they're going to figure that in their bid. They're going to say, okay, the city takes too long to pay, so we're going to figure it in. And so it had happened more than once on this job for sure, because he called me himself. So I know he had to borrow, go out and take out a loan for, it's a substantial amount of money. Thanks. I know it's not you making the payment, but thanks.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0, bringing us to business items. Thank you, Joe. Receive bids for the sale of the city's $8,100,000 general obligation bond, Series 2022, and award the sale of the $8,100,000 general obligation bond, Series 2022, to the lowest bidder. Joe Don.
Yes, sir. Mr. Gander is passing out some documentation to you, and once that is completed, I am going to turn this over to him. He is the man with the plan.
As you remember, we were here last council meeting, and at that time, we set the date, time, and place. We received bids in this next series of GO bonds, which was today at 11 o'clock, which you have in front of us where there were bid results. We received 4 bids. Piper Sandler and Company out of Minneapolis was the low bid. If you go to the far right, that's the interest rate basically we're paying on the bonds. So it's 3.6088. What we call the cover bid, or the next best bid, was 3.6497. We like to see it close so we know we've got good rates. And as you can see, we have 4 bids and they're all within 15 basis points. So we think we got 4 good bids. Our recommendation is to award to the lowest bidder, which is Piper Sandler. So that's this agenda item. Then your next agenda item will be the actual authorization of issuing the debt. So we got 2 agenda items. This one is somebody needs to make a motion to award it to Piper Sandler. And then the next one will just be to actually issue the debt. Yes,
So
sir.
does this motion need to state the company that
I would state the company, yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve Piper Sandler and Company for the general obligation bond.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion or debate. Please vote. And the motion carries 7-0. Moving us to item 21, consideration and approval of an ordinance providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds series 2022 in the sum of $8.1 million by the city of Lawton, Oklahoma, authorized at an election duly called and held for such purpose, prescribing form of the general obligation bond series 2022, providing for registration thereof, approving the official statement pertaining to the general obligation bond series 2022, providing for the levy of an annual tax for payment of principal and interest on the same, fixing other details of the issue, and declaring an emergency. Chris.
So this is the one where you're just authorizing the issuance of the debt. And I should mention, you have Stuart England with the Floyd Law Firm here, your bond attorneys, if you have any questions to get too legal in nature where I shouldn't be talking about it.
Any questions?
I was just going to make a motion that we approve the issuance of the bond.
And declare an emergency and read the title only.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second, discussion or debate. Please read the title.
An ordinance providing for the issuance of general obligation bonds in the sum of $8,100,000 by the city of Lawton, Oklahoma, authorized at an election duly called and held for such purpose, prescribing form of bonds, providing for registration thereof, approving the official statement pertaining to the bonds, providing for the levy of an annual tax for payment of principal and interest on the same, fixing other details of the issue, and declaring an emergency.
Please vote. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item number 22, consider approving a resolution by Lawton City officials to designate the original Lawton High School building as Lawton City Hall and designate the Lawton City Council Chamber Auditorium within Lawton City Hall as Wayne Gilley Auditorium in honor of longtime City of Lawton Mayor and Community Ambassador William Wayne Gilley. And this is initiated by Mr. Fortenbaugh, and information is the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Fortenbaugh asked me to take a look at this, and what I was able to determine was that the old City Hall building, the one that was destroyed in 2019, was named after Wayne Gilley, the longest-serving mayor in the history of Lawton, 24 total years as mayor. So going through the research and kind of piecing through the different facts, I was able to determine that the naming of that building was directly related to the building that was destroyed. So this building, which is Lawton High School, it was nationally registered, historically registered in 1997, can't be called Wayne Gilley City Hall because this building already has a name. So so when council passed this resolution in 1986 naming City Hall Wayne Gilley City Hall in perpetuity, they were talking about the old building. They were not talking about this building. So the kind of the compromise here is that we would name the auditorium in Mr. Gilley's honor. And so that's what the research said.
Discussion, council, or a motion?
I move that this resolution be accepted.
Motion for acceptance and a second. Discussion or debate?
I just have one thing, Mayor. I don't know if any of you knew Wayne Gilley, but I personally did, and he worked with my grandfather at Wayne. What was this? Cox. What was it? It's out on Cash Road. Weldon Cox. That's correct. And he was a salesman there, but he sold Lawton at every turn of his entire life. I never met a person that was so pro Lawton and so humble. Such a humble guy, and I'm sure that he would be very, very proud.
Okay, anybody else? I think this is great. I think we need to honor Mayor Gilley, and his name was on the old City Hall, and of course, that lived its course, and I remember it from when I was a kid. And I never knew him personally, though I met him. I never knew him personally, but absolutely worthy of recognition. Mr. Harris. Pardon? Oh, waiting to vote. Okay. Mr. Warren.
And let me preface this with, I have no problem with approving this item, but there is another idea. I've had a couple, I don't know if they're complaints or people that weren't really happy about it simply because, of course, everybody knows somebody else that they think should have that honor. We might consider, and the city manager can probably explain this better than I can, the possibility that we could not name the building, but put a monument honoring Mayor Gilley out there in the yard. Michael, do you?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, on the east side of the building over here, where there's a flagpole, kind of sits by itself, there's a fairly decent sized slab of concrete. Looked like it used to be a pedestal for something. And as I was walking around City Hall today, I noticed it because I know Mr. Warren had mentioned the fact that there were other people that were prominent members of the community, and I'm not taking any away from Mr. Gilley at all, but the idea came to me that maybe we could put some sort of granite monument to him and memorialize him in a way that says this building is dedicated to the service of Mayor Wayne Gilley and his 24 years of service, and have a picture of his bust or whatever laser etched into the granite, and it be on that piece of a concrete pad right outside on the east side of the building. I think that would solve some issues with naming things inside the building, and because there are other competing interests or other names that were mentioned as a solution. And that's all. Just had an idea and thought I would mention it.
Mr. Burke.
The only thing that, Lita and the Historical Society have been very, very crazy about this building, because not only we don't own this building is also shared with Lawton Public Schools. The pad that you're talking about, we had a structure out there by an artist that Lita put out there, and we put the structure out there on that deal. The last thing I think what we would have to do if we were going to do something like that, I don't believe that the Historical Society nor Lita would want there to be something that looked like a tombstone, like we have on Cash Road. That it was in good thought that what they put out on Cash Road, but it truly looks like a tombstone, and that's not what we want people to think of when they drive into Lawton or come to our City Hall. This is not the place you come to die. So the whole idea, though, is Mr. Hampton will probably tell you, with what we've been doing with the historical preservation, is making sure that we don't put anything outside of here that would do away from what was historical here. And this is a historical building. and has great significance to our city. And so that's my concerns with adding something outside the building that would have somebody's name on it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hampton?
Yes, Mayor. I remember Ware Lavering, he was very humble. He always liked driving the Granada, Ford Granada. I don't know why. They tried to give him a better car or different cars. He always said, no, give me he was a car salesman. With that said, I would be remiss to not mention, I had a constituent bring up the fact that she felt that maybe Manette Page should have gotten some type of recognition, and she had mentioned that maybe this or another part of the building or something like that. But Manette Page did. She seems to be a thread in just everything. You know, she was on the school board. She was a teacher here. She taught a lot of people, and she was very, very instrumental in, I think, even helping get this building on the registry. But whether it's her for the auditorium or the banquet hall or something else, but they were suggesting that maybe Manette Page should have some type of recognition in this building also. And as I said, it would be remiss for me not mentioning that.
And recognizing, I just want to say that recognizing the mayor doesn't mean that somebody else isn't worthy of recognition. Mayor Gilley served this community a long time, and the fact that that's worthy of recognition is something in and of itself. And anyone else that's worthy of recognition is something in and of itself. So there's my thoughts. Ms. Hankins.
Mr. Mayor, I haven't even been in Lawton very long, but I have heard that name and never anything negative with that name ever since I've been in Lawton for the 23 years I've been here, and I think it's would be a good thing to do.
Wonderful. Mr. Warren.
I have a vivid memory of going to Weldon Cox one day when I was in high school, and Mayor Gilley coming down there on a little golf cart and trying to sell me a car. I didn't end up buying it, but he tried really, really hard. He was a great guy, and the thing I liked about the city manager's thoughts on that was that that would give us the opportunity to tie that monument to the sister city monument that's kind of sitting over there by itself now, that has no real anchor. You know, it's just kind of over there under a tree. And if we could build something that made those two go together, you know, I thought that was an advantage. But again, like I said, I don't have any problem doing this. I do see issues in the future with different entities and people that are going to want to have something named. What I would ask the council to do is, if that becomes an issue, that we try to figure out ways to name rooms and buildings in a general sense. I've told the manager a few times that we need to name those meeting rooms so I know where I'm supposed to show up at. You know, just simply the second floor meeting room doesn't tell me if it's the what we call the fish bowl, or if it's this one back here, or what. So if we could figure out a way to name those meeting rooms with a distinctive name, I would appreciate that. But if we got a motion and a second.
A motion and a second. Is there more discussion or debate? Please vote. And the motion carries 6-0. Bringing us to item number 23, discuss benchmarking important metrics of efficiency and community measures with the largest 10 cities in Oklahoma, and consider a proposal for retaining an outside contractor to provide these services. Approve said proposal and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute necessary documents. Council, this is something that we've looked at for 3.5 years, or well, we've talked about it for 3.5 years. And I think it's time that the council take the bull by the horns and get this complete. I spoke with Scott Hatch, who I believe has a very good reputation as a local CPA, and he can do this for us, and we just have to decide what he wants to do. Now, in the agenda item, it says the largest 10 cities. I probably would recommend starting with the third largest city through the 8th. And then we need to use the metrics of 77,000 citizens, because that's how many citizens we actually service. The other citizens are on Port Sill and receive their services from the installation. I'll tell you, I think it was Thursday, we were at the State of the Small Business Luncheon, and a guy there from Enid named Matt Davis, that Miss Hankins knows, he was given a proposal, and he said, he talked about if you want things to improve, and he quoted Pearson's Law, and he emailed this to me, and I'm going to read it here. When performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported back, the rate of improvement accelerates. And I think everybody up here, and I think all of our citizens, want us to deliver services as efficiently as possible. And I think we want to do that too. So measurements are important. I think it's time for the council to act on this. And obviously, discussion is important, but I'd also appreciate a motion. Mr. Warren.
Mayor and council, I don't have a problem with this. I think it is important that we measure, because if we don't measure, each new day we are starting fresh, and we never have anywhere to go. We just do better than we were this morning. The other thing is, I would hope that along with all the other metrics that should be involved, it's very important that we include, along with population, that we include sales tax numbers. Because we get into a deal where we compare ourselves to, say, and this is an example, we compare ourselves to Norman. Well, that's great, but Norman has more retail in a mile and a half on I-35 than we have in our entire town. And so I think that sales tax is an important number, because that's where that funding comes from to complete programs and things of that nature.
So thank you for that. I agree. And just here are some of the metrics that I thought we'd start with. Not that this could change a little bit, but was employees by department. Currently, as a city, we have about 11 employees per 1,000 citizens serviced, where Oklahoma City, Norman, Broken Arrow, and Edmond have between 7 and 8, I think it is. So that's one of the things. And once we see a discrepancy, then we know to drill down on something and try to find it by department, what might be the challenge. Employee turnover is an important measure that indicates there's a problem. It doesn't tell you what the problem is, but it indicates a problem. Of course, crime stats, we're all interested in that. City income. Now, I hadn't thought about breaking it down like you described, but I like that idea of breaking it down by where the income comes from. And also breaking down what's expenses and how much expense per capita. So thank you very much. Mr. Fortenbaugh.
I'm actually glad. I think you said it's been 3.5 years. I know a couple of years ago, in the budget, we budgeted for a benchmark person. I don't think we ever got that person, and I think that position dropped out maybe accidentally in the next budget year. But we really need to look at putting it back. This next budget we're going to do come June. But it is time to start doing this, because I think other cities are benchmarking and making decisions based on that. This will help all of us make decisions up here. But one key thing I think that has to happen is is this information, it should be shared with us as it comes in, and also with the city manager and the department heads. So everybody gets it at the same time, nobody's trying to hide anything, but we get it too.
So thank you for saying that. And my intent is to publish this in the budget book like other cities do. Even if we're not the best, we look at that and say, we got to get better. So it's a good thing. Mr. Hampton?
Yes, Mayor. For the sake of transparency, and this actually, this being a benchmark that kind of steps outside of the realm of and looks at us as a city, for the sake of the constituents and whatnot, I feel strongly about maybe this report should be directly to the council and the mayor. That should be part of the motion.
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I want to go ahead and pass this item and add to it to report directly to the council and the mayor.
Okay, all right. So motion for approval, and you're adding to the recommendation that the reporting directly to the council and mayor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, motion on the floor. Is there a second? And we do have a second. Discussion or debate.
I just have one thing to say that, you know, every company in the world that's successful has key performance indicators. They have KPIs. We have them in my business. I'm sure Mr. Fortenbaugh has them in his business. We don't have a choice, and these are nationwide. These are not something we have to reinvent the wheel. These are things that are all across the nation that people are using, cities are using. But we also have to remember that we live in a community that's very, very transient. We have people coming and going constantly. And so we don't have the base people that live in our community like a lot of other communities. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that almost 50% of our homes in Lawton are rentals. There has to be some thought into that KPI, into okay, how do we keep those houses current? These people live in California or live in Hawaii, or, you know, we hear it all the time because we can't find them, right? We can't find who the homeowner is. And so my point is with KPIs, they at least will tell you where you're at and where you key performance indicator. That will tell us where we stand against other cities our same size. And look for cities, not just in Oklahoma, because I could care less about the other cities in Oklahoma, to be honest with you, and what they're doing, because we're different. Take us and look at us compared to Midwest City, maybe. Okay, to me that's a comparable city that does the same kind of things we do. They have an Air Force base there, then they have the turnover that we have. Our staff is dependent upon, number one is how well we treat them, so that KPI has to be involved, and the benefits that we offer. So looking at all of those things, I think, make a big difference. And I'll be long gone before all this happens, but we've been working on it for years, Mayor, and I think you're right. Until we know where we stand and stack up, we're not going to stack up well against Broken Arrow. We're not going to stack up well against some of these other communities that have the income and the home ownership that in those communities. We're not going to do it. We won't look well. So that's just my input.
Ms. Hankton.
Those factors all have to be included in the narrative. And, I mean, you ought to try to measure human behavior. And that was the field I was in. It's hard to do, but you've got to do something. And then there's always, you know, an explanation, which is important.
So I would say before we vote, I do expect there to be a learning curve here as we get started. And I probably don't expect the first round of it to be out of state, because that does take a little more adjusting. Because, for instance, Wichita Falls, which we might consider comparable, they have a military base, a smaller university, but they also have their tax base as ad valorem, the exact opposite. So make some of those things difficult. But I think as we get into this and do it every year, we get better at it. So appreciate that commentary. If there's no more comment or debate, please vote. And the motion carries 6-0. Okay, moving us to item 24, receive a presentation from staff on fire rating number 1 and the possibility of a split rating for unprotected areas, and discuss how this would or could impact the area considered for de-annexation and take any action deemed necessary. Chief?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'll try to keep this brief. This is kind of taking me back to my roots when I was a training officer. You've given me a clicker, and I'll try. I know the adult entertainment or the adult attention is only about 45 to 50 minutes, and so I'll keep this at a brief as I can. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about what ISO is. They collect information on municipal fire departments and efforts through the United States. They work with communities to analyze the department, also looking at how they complete a fire suppression rating schedule, and they rate the departments from 1 to 10, with 1 being the superior department and 10 being one that doesn't meet the minimum criteria. So what an ISO score is, it's all these different areas come in. 50% of it is the department, it's the training, the deployment, the number of firefighters, the trucks, the capabilities of the department itself. 40% of it is our water supply, fire hydrants, water available after the daily consumption. 10% of it revolves around our communication center. We have an excellent communication center that helps us out with our score. And then 5.5% is community risk reduction. Now, if you add all those up, I am aware that is more than 100%. That's their score, it's not ours. That's how they value it. Specifically, we want to talk about the water supply, the 44%. It's the overall scores based on the adequacy of our water supply. I mean, we are good here in Lawton. We have a great water supply, 2 lakes, 3 lakes supplying that. The ISO field representative, when they come in, they evaluate us on the distribution system and needed fire flow locations up to 3,500 gallons a minute. So that's what we consider anything gets a rating. Any building in town, and we have 27 that are above a fire flow of 3,500, they get their own ISO rating, even within a system as ours. So what they look at is the size, type, and installation of hydrants, the inspection and flow of the hydrants. The system continues. They measure that within anything within 1,000 feet of an address, and so we have to be able to lay hose. It's as the truck drives. It's not across the country or as a crow flies, you may say. For maximum credit, the needed fire flow should be available at each location, and that needed fire flow of 2,500 or less, you have to be able to demonstrate that for 2 hours. Anything more than that, 3,000 and 3,500, you have to be able to sustain that for 3 hours. And again, that's on top of your average daily consumption. When we start really talking about alternative water supplies, and this is really what we're starting to talk about with like the area on the 67th Street, this water supply must be available 365 days a year. So it's not something that you can just pick and choose what day you want to look at it. And you're starting out at 250 gallons per minute and for a 2-hour duration at that point. And then you're looking at addresses or locations within 5 minutes of a fire station. And if a community uses dry hydrant or as a suction point, it'd be like someone having a swimming pool, a pond, something like that they want to evaluate. You then have to have that certified by the 50-year drought cycle, and it has to come in and be certified that even during time of drought, that would still be available if you want to qualify that as water. Now for us, our department, our city, 2017, that was the last one we have on record. We're in the middle of a process now. All our data has been turned in. We should be seeing that results come back in December or January. But in 2017, we achieved a 43.18 out of 50. Our water supply received a 34, almost 35 out of 40. Emergency communications, again, 9.85 out of 10. And our community risk reduction, 4.5. You add all those together, and that's where we got a 92.29, qualifying for us for an ISO 1. So that's kind of the background getting us to the part that we really want to talk about, the split rating. ISO has the ability, when they come into a community, if they see some areas of concern that we don't have the ability to deliver water to, they can declare you an ISO split rating. We don't have the ability to go out and request that. It's not something we determine. ISO does that for us during their evaluation process. So the first number is the properties within 5 miles and within a credible water source, that 1,000 feet that we talked about. Anything outside of that, that's where the second rating comes in, and so they start to look at you, what you can do outside of your water supply. The alternate rating is based on the fire department's ability to provide water by alternate source. So there's several different ways you can do that. You can do the dry hydrant, you can do tanker shuttle, or you can have some extended lay hose lines. For our community to be eligible for a class 8 or better, and so remember we're a 1, but if we start looking at a split rating, for it to be 8 or better, you have to be able to deliver at least 250 gallons a minute for a period of 2 hours. That flow is in addition to the community's maximum daily consumption. If the department delivers 250 gallon through tanker shuttle, large hose, alternate water supply. The water must be available within 5 minutes. So it's not something that we can start looking outside the department. And we'll talk a little bit about a couple different ways like Oklahoma City is doing theirs to accomplish that. And also if we were to start looking at mutual aid and how that would interact with us. I brought up Oklahoma City. They're a pretty good test place to look at. They are split rating. They have a 1-3. Oklahoma City Fire Department staffs 6 3,000-gallon tankers daily. In addition to a normal structure fire response, if they have a response in an area that's in a diminished water supply, they're sending 2 of those tankers. So they're automatically moving 6,000 gallons of water in addition to what's on the trucks at that point. In some areas, they have automatic aid agreements with full-time departments around them. And at that point, that's a minimum of 2,500 gallons that automatic aid is bringing to them. So they're shipping in almost 8,500 gallons of water to that site almost immediately. And again, the first one has to be there within 5 minutes. Our current status, we don't have any tankers. We've been blessed to be a very good city. We have a robust water supply, but this is what has kind of driven us to this point. When we start looking at this as our growth has kind of pushed us further to the outside. Our closest full-time mutual aid is Fort Sill. If you look at their location and where specifically our problems are, the 67th Street area and some of those other ones on the south side of town, that would be greater than a 5-minute travel time to be able to have that there. We have some great volunteer partners on the outside of the city, and they do a great job. But again, just the time of response to be able to count on that as that primary water source would not be available. Anytime we call mutual aid, our volunteers come in and help, and it's kind of we go to them when they call. But again, that's going to be outside of that. So that's the biggest problem we're seeing right now with the split rating is the inability for us to be able to deliver the water there in the timely fashion to be able to obtain that or to be able to certify that as a needed fire flow. So what would it cost? I think that would be important for us to talk about. A tanker in today's world is about $250,000 for us to be able to deliver 2, to be able to get that. And the reason I say 2, when you look at 3,000 gallons, it's kind of the benchmark of the water supply. At 250 gallons a minute, that's only going to last 12 minutes. So then you're going to have to figure out something else. So that would give us ability to start. That would give us 24 minutes of firefighting. Then we can start utilizing those mutual aid partners to come in and assist if the fire is still roaring at that time. Annual cost, salary, and benefits to be able to have somebody put on those trucks to drive them. We would need 6, 2 per shift. We have 3 shifts. So annual salary and benefits would be $468,000 to be able to man those trucks and have those available. Kind of in summary, before I get into questions, ISO would determine if we're required to be an ISO split-rated community. Within the community, with the current resources and manning, we are unable to provide that and deliver that water supply for the needed fire flow in the absence of hydrants. And with that, I would entertain any questions.
So I've got some. And the challenge is, you and I have had several discussions, and the council hasn't had those. Can you go back a slide to the cost? Okay, so does Oklahoma City have any unprotected 9, Class 9?
Not that the chief told me. Obviously, I have not studied their maps, and this was in discussion with their fire chief in preparation for this. I emailed him and asked how they were doing this and how they accomplished their rating.
And so this would get us to 8 or better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but there is a 9, which is unprotected, which is what we have right across the city limit line as unprotected, right?
That is correct.
And so we've got this range between an 8-inch line running right up to the city limits, which would be kind of like the best case scenario, and then the worst case scenario is unprotected. So there is an option to not spend this money, I think, and still provide some fire protection, but you'd be considered unprotected. I think at the end of the day, what I'd like to see in order to get all of the options on the table, not just some of them, because this isn't the only option, would be for some staff members, including from license and permit, whoever the city manager wants to, and the fire department, and some from our new council committee to take a field trip up and make an appointment and visit with Oklahoma City. And I'm not sure we shouldn't visit with somebody a little smaller than Oklahoma City like Edmond, who has quite a bit more square miles than us. And I have no idea if they have a split rating. I'm just saying.
Edmond does, and they're actually in the process. After we visited yesterday, I was able to visit Edmond has some areas, and they're even a little worse off than Oklahoma City. I didn't know their whole rating, but they are in the process. They're building station number 6, and they're searching for land for station 7 and 8. They're a growing community, and so they're combating that right now, trying to figure that out. They're looking to close that miles down. There's 2 different reasons that you get the split rating. One of them is being farther away than the 5 miles, and one of them is not able to deliver the water in that area. And so part of Edmond's issue is some of their community is growing to the point in the city limits that they're outside the 5-mile travel. We're in a little different setting at this point, or different problem. We're meeting the mileage, we just don't have the water. So I think when we talk about it, and I think going to visit's a great idea, but there's more factors into it than just proximity and then proximity to water.
Yeah, and I think a great way to learn more would be that field trip. I know I talked to you and the city manager about it. I'm not sure if I talked to anybody else about it. What would you guys think that are on that committee? You're on that committee.
Mayor, I think that's probably a good use for that committee. I did have a question, though, for city manager or staff. Do we have any projected purchases of tankers with rolling stock in the future?
No, sir, we don't. I think if you recall, in one of our discussions, when we were discussing how to expend ARPA dollars, we did recommend a tanker at that time. The council decided to take a different tack. So to answer your question, no, we do not have any tankers in the rolling stock for purchase.
Well, I just wanted to remind the tankers, I mean, that's a lot of money. But the real issue is the manning of the tankers, because that's a long-term expense. The tankers we'd have to rebuy, and I don't know what, once every 10 years, 15 years, whatever.
Probably 15.
But the manpower we're going to be paying for on a monthly basis. So that we're going to have to do something. And I think you're right. I think that might be a good item for the committee to look at. We're getting ready to have some growing pains, and we've already started feeling them a little bit with this issue at 67th Street. I know there's some issues on the east side of town. We've got a nice water tower, but we don't have some lines going to some of the places that we need lines going to. And the simple fact is we don't have the money to do that. We don't have any money to go south. So we're going to have to figure out inventive ways to make it advantageous for developers to put those lines in so that we have those, so we don't run into problems like we've got in that area, because that's where that all started, was nobody wanted to put that infrastructure in, so it didn't get put in, and now we're paying the price for it.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to weigh in. I agree with Councilman Warren. With all the things that are going on with LEDA and possible businesses coming in, it is no doubt that we're a growing city now. And I think that finding options early is better than waiting for things to just kind of come on you. So I think that that's a good idea to go and try to put together some options as to what we could do to provide the viability of fire services for our city as we're growing.
Okay, so I don't think we really need any action. I don't see any. Mr. Fortenbaugh, were you reaching for the button there? No? I don't want to cut anybody off, but I don't think any action is really needed. It sounds to me like we're in agreement to put together a field trip, and no action is required for that, I don't think. So if there's no more comments, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Chief. Number 25, consider an ordinance pertaining to offenses and crimes, amending section 1652-221, 1652-222, 1652-223, and 1652-225, all within Division 1652, Article 16.5, Chapter 16 of the Lawton City Code 2015 relating to prevention of youth access to tobacco, by adding the terms nicotine product and vapor product, and by increasing the legal age from 18 to 21, amended by state law, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. John.
Mayor, Council, state law changed in 2019, updating the youngest age you could smoke from 18 to 21. Businesses across town have been enforcing this since then, but we just wanted to make sure that we caught our own code up with the with where state law is. And additionally, by making this change, it's going to put us in a better position to get the tobacco cessation grants, some of those things that we apply for TSET money. So this is, this puts us in a better position for that.
Mr. Ward?
Is this an emergency item?
No, it's not an emergency.
I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance, waive the reading of the ordinance, read the title only.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We do have a second. Discussion or debate?
I have a question.
Yes.
When will this take place? Once this is passed, when does it take place?
When does it go into effect? 30 days from now.
But it's already in effect through the state, so it's in effect. It's just housekeeping. Mr. Hampton.
Yes, Mayor. I'm probably echoing City Attorney, but I think that when we do this code, we're lining ourselves up with the state, and I think it's important to understand a lot of this is really to help the children and make sure that we have a city code that's going to protect them from, at least give them an advantage in not tobacco, that tobacco and vaping could cause in their lives. And also, I think that it's important that we align ourselves up with the state. And I think as the city attorney said, it'll help us to provide for grants and other monies that we apply for to try to help a more healthy environment here in our city. Thank you, Mayor.
Please read the ordinance.
An ordinance pertaining to offenses and crimes amending section 16.5.2.221, 16.5.2.22, 16.5.2.23, and 16.5.2.2.25, all within Division 16.5.2, Article 16.5, Chapter 16, Lawton City Code, 2015, relating to the prevention of youth access of tobacco by adding the terms nicotine product and vapor product, and by increasing the legal age from 18 to 21, as amended by state law, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Moving us to item number 26. Consider an ordinance pertaining to city contracts and sales amending section 10.1.122, Article 10.1, Chapter 10 of Lawton City Code 2015, relating to gifts and favors by allowing the city manager to administratively approve any gift, grant, or loan to the city of Lawton under the amount of $1,000, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. John.
Mayor and Council, if you recall, we discussed this last meeting, and this change to the ordinance would just give the city manager administrative authority to accept gifts on behalf of the city for a higher amount, up to $1,000. So like last week or 2 weeks ago when we had our last meeting, the city council had to approve a gift of some pizzas, if you recall. So this would kind of obviate the need for that in the future. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Move to approve.
Motion is to approve and waive the reading of the ordinance. Is that what the second is? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please read the ordinance.
An ordinance.
Can I make a comment real quick? And maybe it's not the need of the council, but are we married to the $1,000? I mean, if it would encourage someone to give that money, I don't see a reason that we have to approve, up to $5,000. I mean, if they want to give it, I'd probably take $1 million and just let the manager accept it. But
Mr. Warren, if they gave $1 million, I would accept it and then ask for forgiveness.
I mean, if y'all want to make a floor amendment, I would vote for that too, but that's,
I would love to make the floor amendment to make that.
$1 million?
To $1 million, yeah, $1 million, no. I think $5,000 is a fair number, so I'd like to make that amendment to $5,000.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment to the motion to make this $5,000. Who made the second? And do you accept that second? Discussion or debate? Please vote. Oh, we got to read the ordinance.
An ordinance pertaining to city contracts and sales, amending section 10-1-122, Article 10-1, Chapter 10 of Lawton City Code 2015, relating to gifts and favors by allowing the city manager to administratively approve any gift, grant, or loan to the city of Lawton under the amount of $5,000, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Moving us to staff reports. Receive a quick finance report for the period ending September 2022 from Joe Don.
Quick. I understand.
Do you need a definition?
No, I think I understand the meaning of quick. Yes, sir. We're looking at the first quarter for 2023. Bottom line is we brought in more money than we expended, but we didn't bring in money that would be consistent with receiving our budgeted money systematically throughout the year, meaning just taking an average of our budget revenues, we should have brought in about $65 million. We brought in 47. There are things that prevent that, the timing of grants, timing of taxes coming in, different things that affect that it'll level out over the years. Expenses, we brought in, we spent $31 million. And if you averaged out and we were spending it about the same every year, about every month, we would have spent about $52 million. If we look at our revenues, and I think this is this could go back to your topic of performance measures. Oklahoma is very unique in the fact we don't receive money the way any other state in the union does. Our money is primarily sales tax and utility services, or charges for services. Those are the two areas we get, and that's reflected in our budget. We've collected about $14 million in taxes and about $13 million in charges for services. Other areas is fines and forfeitures, license and fees, grants, and interest income. Other is just everything else that we receive. Everything else that we receive besides those areas. Our expenditures, yes, sir.
Is that okay? Can you go back? Okay, there you are. Interest income, $4.6 million.
Yes, sir.
That means we got $46 million sitting in the bank?
That is
across 10%, be $460 million.
That is across all of our funds. So that's interest income we've gotten off of our bonds that we have. That's interest income we got off of our cash. That's interest income we've gotten off of our investments. That's every interest income that we get across all 27 funds.
Including the pension fund?
Yes.
Thank you.
Get back to not bad.
I think the point of this report is to show that if you read the first couple pages, and Joe Don can get to them in a minute, that revenue's coming in at about 2.1%. We predicted 2.3% for the budget, so it is coming in as predicted, slightly lower. If you compare it to last year, then it is slightly under what we received last year on a year-to-year date. Well, excuse me, a little bit more. That's back the other direction. So, John, I want you to pick up from there where the utility revenues and how they're tracking. And I think, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, but what they want to know is our revenue tracking as it should be, and our expenditures under where we said we would be? And both of those are...
Yeah, both answers to that is yes. Your revenues are tracking about where we expect them to be. If we're looking at, as far as our major revenue sources are concerned. We can get over here and see that with our sales tax trends. We're doing a little bit better than we were last year. Not quite where we wanted to be as far as our budget was at. We're just a hair under what we would have been budgeted, but we're at 2.1% as far as our sales tax is concerned. Utilities are about the same way. Our hotel motel tax, that's coming in a little bit less than what our budgeted numbers were, but we're still doing better than what we were doing last year for the same time frame.
So compared to our budget, the hotel motel tax, compared to the budget, is 17% off of where we...
Yes, 17% off. And that's in the report that is given to you. I emailed out and is provided to you in the paper today.
That's what I don't understand, because we just got a report at the last meeting of how amazing the hotel motel industry we were doing here locally. So how can we be that far under budget? Did we just over-project?
I don't believe that we've over-projected. It just again, the trend is for the budget is receiving it systematically the same throughout every month in the year. And I think what we're going to see is that this time of the year, we may not be seeing some of the things that we would typically see. Our tourism, yeah, we had great tourism, for example. We had people coming in for the rodeo. We had people, record attendances on a lot of these major events. But what I think this is showing is that we may have had the sales tax. I mean, we may be getting the sales tax off the sales of food and things like that. But I don't think some of those people that may have typically stayed because of inflation or whatever, that may have typically spent the night here, probably didn't spend the night here. I think it's what that says.
My conversations with the chamber president also, they're tracking similar numbers. Carrie Pay, who sits on the Chamber of Commerce Committee, talked about smaller numbers of people coming to graduation. So not as many people are coming, they're coming, but not as many people are coming. And that really could be an inflationary driven issue because gas is higher, food is higher, hotels, taxes on everything are up. So not that people aren't coming, they are, just not as many people are coming. So we're watching it. It is up over last year, but it is down over the budget we projected this year. So we're watching those numbers to see where we're at. And as always, if we see a trend and it continues, we'll alert the council and we'll adjust those expenditures and we'll talk to the council on what we need to do as far as budgets for those folks that have been supplied funds through those hotel motel tax.
And one of the things that, like especially for hotel motel, I sat here and I heard the same reports you did at the last meeting. All record attendances, a lot of people coming. I'd like to see how they are tracking those rooms and how those rooms, if they are tracking the rooms, and how they correlate back to our reports that I'm giving you, because they don't match up really the way I would have expected them to. And I hope to have a conversation with the chamber director at sometime in the future. I haven't been able to get caught up with her yet, but I've been working toward that. And it may be just it may be an issue of timing on how do they collect it, when do they remit it? It's not the same month they collected in. It'd be the month after or the quarter after, and that may be when we should see some of these jumps, and that's what I'd like to also find out from her. You bet. And that kind of brings us up to, we jumped ahead. So that is all, that is the report. You do have a written. Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you shut off, did we ever, Michael, did we ever get work done on the vacation rental by owner and those kind of temporary housing to collect that?
Yes, we just, it was really of a bear trying to get all of the data, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Judy here?
Yeah,
To
Judy
get the
is here.
data from the county on all the property owners to supply to Granicus. We just got that. Judy sent that off about a week ago, so it's taken us longer than we wanted to, but that was an arduous process trying to get all of those addresses from the county. I don't think it was the county. I think it's just the fact that it was a hard time collecting what they needed in the format.
It was
they
more a
needed.
collection of the data that Granicus needed that really nobody tracked. Like, for some of these bed and breakfasts, how big were they? How many rooms were they 2-room houses, 3-room houses? And nobody was really tracking that, and that's been a hard set of data to get a hold of to be able to get our Granicus thing going.
Mr. Hampton, I would add that we have collected, we started collecting hotel motel at Fort Sill for non-ID card holders at the hotel out there in January. So that's, some good news.
That's actually an act of Congress that was done. You know that, right? We've been trying for 100 years for that to happen for IHG to pay.
I do think probably an update that this hotel motel seems to be off enough that we need a mid-year update in January to kind of evaluate that. Thank you very much, Doug.
Okay.
Now we have a staff introduction by Chief Jarrett.
Well, I'll make my part short. Without further ado, I'll introduce our new Fire Marshal, Heath Want. And Heath's been with us for 16 years, and he's recently selected to take over our Fire Marshal's division. And I think he would like to talk to you guys, and maybe you'd like to hear from him. Heath?
Are we sure he's the one? I mean, do we have to take him? Oh, yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself today. I'm Heath Want, and I'm honored to have been named the newest fire marshal for the city of Lawton. Like Jared said, I've been with the Lawton Fire Department for 16 years, and I've learned so much in my time here. However, I've not forgotten my roots as well. My roots, a little bit of my background was, I was raised in a small town where my family had a small business there for many years. In fact, I come from a family that has depended on owning small businesses to make a living. I know the sweat equity and the numerous hours it takes to own a business, and my goal is to take that upbringing and apply it to the fire prevention office. I believe it's important to educate not only the business owners, those wanting to come to Lawton, but also the citizens of the importance of life safety. Life safety is important to our business owners, our firefighters, citizens, and our visitors that come to this city. Life safety education is working together to find a solution that works for all of us. I also realize that not everything is possible when it comes to life safety, right? But I do feel like it's our job in the prevention office to educate and see if a solution is possible. Again, thank you so much for the time today, and I look forward to working together for the city of Lawton and the Lawton Fire Department.
Okay, thank you. I want to repeat something. I heard working together to find a solution that works for all of us.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. That's a great thing. That's a great thing for companies coming to Lawton and citizens in our local business to hear. Working together, find solutions that work for all of us. Thank you. And we're proud of you, and congratulations.
Appreciate
on
you
your
guys.
promotion.
Thank y'all.
Probably won't have it, but is there a motion for adjournment? We did have a motion. Did I hear a second or third? Please call the roll.
Chapman, Burke, Hampton, Fortenbaugh, Warren, Hankins,